morning, Rabotai. Welcome to breakfast and the class. From far and wide, we want to give a special shout out to a long-time listener and first-time attender, Rabbi Nachum Graydon. Back in the day, we went to yeshiva together. Very, very special. Chazak Baruch. So I want to just share with you one beautiful idea that I think begins, like most Torah ideas, begins where the idea is said and how it's said. But really, if you think about the idea and how far it goes, in every word of Torah and in every mitzvah and in every idea, there's entire worlds. Like the language of Chazal is Tilei Tilim Shel Halachot. There's mountains, there's connections, there's many, many beautiful things that come out of it. So let's try and understand. I want to start with the words of Reb Chaim Pelagi. Reb Chaim Pelagi was one of the greatest Sephardic writers, the greatest halachists. He wrote in a prolific way many dozens of Sepharim, very important books for Sephardim, for our custom. And I want to share with you one of the words, one of the ideas that he brings in his Sefer Refuah V'Chaim. P.S. If anyone has this book, it's a mind-blowing book. One of those books that you read, your mouth is hanging open from the beginning of the book till the end of the book. He's talking about all sorts of issues of Refuah, of Chaim. It's unbelievable. Uriel, you ever saw this book? Ya'eni. I'll lend you mine for a minute. You'll never give it back. Okay. A Refuah V'Chaim. Okay. So he says as follows. I'm going to read it to you exactly the quote that he says. Kiryata Parashiot HaMoadim. When a person reads the parashiot of the holidays, and this week's parasha in Pinhas, Haketuvim b'Parashat Pinhas, Misugalim b'Kriyatam levatel dinim. They have within their recitation, they have the power to undo, to annul judgment. Umisugalim lizkot, and they are specifically set aside as something which is a zechut for bedinei akum, for judgment when a person has a court case with someone who's not Jewish. Wild. Why, of all things, would the Parashat HaMoadim be something that is misugal if a person has a court case? If there's a unjustified claim against him. I must say, personally, I'm reminded now of this sigula because I have a court case. Now, hopefully, it won't get to a court case, but with my chedame. So she decided she wants to chase us for. So the way I just realized I've been focusing on the lawyer, on the G. Meanwhile, what do I need to be doing? I need to be saying Parashat HaMoadim. So what about Parashat HaMoadim? What is it that communicates something which is helpful for that zechut? What is it? And he says as follows. He says, also, it's also brought down, also in one of his other books called Moed L'Chol Chai, he says that from Parashat HaTamid, from the parasha that discusses the Korban Tamid, until the end of the parasha, he would read it himself all the time. Ki yadua shesigulat korbanot shel Chag HaSukkot, the korbanot of the holiday of Sukkot, shehem shiv'im parim, that they would bring all in total 70 bulls. They would start with 14, second day 13, third day 11, next day, right? Each day they would read about a descending number of bulls. That finally by the 8th day, they only brought one. That was Shemini Atzeret. That one was for Am Yisrael. So there's 70 korbanot that are brought on all the holiday days, and on the 8th day is the one for Am Yisrael. So since those korbanot are brought, keneged for all the Shiv'im, the 70 nations, for the 70 angels in Shamayim, so what happens? That is enough to be able to vanquish a claim against the person. And if a person has a problem such as this, what should they do? They should read the korbanot, and that will be helpful. And he records a case of a person that had a government judgment against them. Today, we're used to this idea that if someone does a crime, then they have to go to prison. You do the crime, you do the time. But for many, many, many generations, Jews were doing time without doing the crime. You had the guy, the poritz, okay, if you were in Ashkenaz lands. You had the sheikh. You had the guy if you were in Arabic lands. He liked your business. He wanted to take your business, so what did he do? He made up whatever. They threw you in prison, he took your business. That's what it was like. In Damascus, there was a very famous case, actually involved a Farhi, a famous blood libel. You can read about this anywhere. It's a blood libel in 100 years ago. I mean, it's not 500 years ago. It's a wild thing to think that they could just make up whatever they want, take you and put you in prison, take your family, torture them, take their money. It's unbelievable. This is what was going on in many, many places. All right? So, what would you do? You'd read this. Now, I wanted to figure out, what is it about this that is a sigula for a person who has a court case? I don't know if you want to sit down in your car when you get a parking ticket and start reading Parashat Mo'adim. I don't know. I think maybe it's Gezerah Gazati Hukah Hakakti El Kharishut La'Reach Hareach. I don't know, but I think a person who's using this zechut. Okay. So this idea of reading this in times like this, when someone is coming after you, or someone has a court case against you, so it's helpful. But why? Why is it helpful? And why specifically these pesukim? So I want to share with you something that I think is very, very deep, because I think that there's two parts to this idea, and then we'll understand hopefully the wider-ranging concept that we're being taught here. We have recorded a conversation between Avraham Avinu and Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Avraham Avinu asks God, how will I know that my children will be protected? What are they going to do? What's going to be? I know that there's going to be a time they're going to be, I'm not going to be here anymore. How will they be protected? And God says, they're going to bring a korban in front of me, the korban tamid, and when they bring the korban tamid, that's going to bring them kapara. Avraham Avinu asks, he was a clever fellow, this guy Avraham, huh? He says, well, what's going to happen when they don't have a Beit HaMikdash? And God says to him, I promise I'm going to take care of them still. They're going to read in front of me the korbanot, and I will count it and consider it as if they're bringing the korbanot in the Beit HaMikdash in front of me. That's why the korbanot in prayer are so important, okay? That's why we say it every day. Because it's so important that when you say the korban tamid, you say the ketoret as if you brought it. The ketoret is a massive sigula for parnasah, but it's also a sigula for life and death. Why? We see by Aharon that when the big plague is spreading, he takes the machta and he goes in between the two camps, and the ketoret is enough to bring a difference between life and death. People always ask me, they're like, Rabbi, I'm in the room, the person's about to pass away. I said already whichever Tehillim I can find on the internet. You know what I tell them? Say Parashat Ketoret. In the Torah it tells us that chases away the Malach HaMavet. That's what you should say in that room. Okay? Now listen to this, my friends. So Hashem tells us that when we say the Korbanot, now it's going to be considered as if you brought the Korbanot. So whatever the Korbanot gave you, mentioning the korbanot actually also gives that to you. What's the language that tells us this? The pasuk says, "Unishalema farim sifatenu." To make up for parim, for bulls, is our mouth. Nishalema parim sifatenu. We will replace the bulls with our mouth. So here too, we're replacing the bulls with our mouth. Now I want to share something with you that I think is very interesting. My dear friend Nachum over there is Ashkenaz, if you can't tell. The reason why Ashkenazim don't say Ketoret is the same reason why we do. They're so worried that they might say the Ketoret the wrong way, and if you miss any one of the ingredients or you say it wrong, it's a disaster. So if it's the same in real life, when you mention it, God forbid, what if a person says it wrong? Chafetz Chaim brings us down. So the irony is, they don't say it, we do say it, both for the same reason. Because as if you're bringing it in real life. Isn't that magnificent? So my friends, listen to this. So now we know that the statement of these things is as if we're in the Beit HaMikdash bringing the korbanot. Now we need to ask, why this korban for this problem? Why the Shiv'im Parim? So the 70 bulls that were brought in the Beit HaMikdash, does anyone know why we bring them? We bring a korban for all the nations. That's what we do, right? Now, to me, that's a little bit crazy. Sorry, mechila. Why? Because those korbanot were for who? The nations of the world. You have a court case against, in a arkaot akum, in a court of non-Jewish people, where they're trying to nail you for something that you didn't do. You're going to say the parasha, which has the korbanot, that are for them? It's counterintuitive. Why would you do that? So I think there's something here very, very, very beautiful. And what made me think of it is this piece from Rav Palaji. He says as follows. He says, he tells us about this parasha, but I want to share with you a beautiful idea. It's one of the craziest pieces you'll ever see in Ramban. On the holiday of Yom Kippur, we take one sa'ir and we bring it to who? To HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then we take one sa'ir and we bring it la'azazel. La'azazel doesn't mean that we bring it to someone called Azazel. The Azazel is the name of the place. It's a place of very high cliffs. They push the sa'ir off the cliff, and the Gemara says that it wouldn't even get to the bottom before it was nitparek na'aseh evarim ve'evarim. The Ramban writes explicitly, what are we doing? Why are we bringing this animal to the cliff? What is it? And he says, kaviyachol, we're bringing this to the sitra achara, to the other side, to the demons, yani, to the devil, right? To the side of tum'ah. Everyone goes nuts on Ramban. Since when did he become a fan of Avodah Zarah? Okay? But all the Sefarim bring this idea. So what does it mean that you're bringing korban to them? You can't do that. Listen to the words of the Shem Yishmuel, one of my favorite Sefarim. The Shem Yishmuel writes, he says that what's happening here is not that you're bringing this as a korban. Has v'shalom. The only person we believe in is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only being we believe in, Mechila, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't believe that anyone or anything has any power. No one, no thing. Only God. En od milvado means there's nothing but Him. Nothing. Only good. All the good that you have in your life comes from Him. Everything terrible, everything challenging that comes to you or from you in your life is also from Him. You get a choice to deal with it, to figure it out, but everything is only Borei Olam. So what's going on over here? The Shem Yishmuel says something very deep. He says that when we go to the Sa'ir Azazel, we quote unquote bring him this korban, right? There's no place where you bring a korban like that. Normally you bring a korban, so it has things that you do as a korban. You slaughter the animal, you spread the blood. Where do you have a scenario where you just shove the animal off? It doesn't exist. There's no other service. It's not a service of Avodah Zarah. He says that what we illustrate is to the Sitra Achara, to the world of Tum'ah. We say to the world of Tum'ah, you eat from our hand. The only existence you have is because we feed you. And when we learn, and when we drive into our consciousness, that every Yetzer Hara and every source of Tum'ah that exists in this world exists only because of one reason. And that reason is, I don't know if that makes me a good athlete or him a good athlete, but as my son-in-law, I'm happy to say that we could both be good athletes. My friends, when he eats by my hand, I decide if you live or die. We are on Yom Kippur reclaiming the power from the Yetzer Hara. Think about how crazy that is. You eat if I decide that you eat. Who else do we say this to? Not only the Yetzer Hara. The Gemara tells us that the Yetzer Hara has an identity crisis. He suffers from multiple personality disorder or schizophrenia. Because not only is the Yetzer Hara, who has-Satan, who Yetzer Hara, who Malach HaMavet, same angel. Yored, right? The Gemara says about the Satan that Yetzer Hara, Yoredu mekatreg. Sorry, Yoredu mefateh. He comes down and he seduces the people. Eat this. Look here. Do that. Take this. Oleu mekatreg. He then goes up to Shamayim. He says, look at what he did. Then Hashem says, green light. He deserves punishment. Yored, unoten l'shama. He comes down and he takes the neshama. So the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, and the Malach HaMavet, same malach. That's what I always say. What the pasuk means when it says, I see, I put before you today, et ha'ayim et ha'tov, et ha'mavet ve'et hara. It's not two things. It's two names for one thing. Mavet ve'et hara, same thing. So on the day of Yom Kippur, who are we talking to? All three versions of him. We're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Malach HaMavet, he's under our control. And we're saying this to ourselves too. Here we are begging God for life. But we're supposed to be reminded of the fact that life is in our hands. That Ra is in our hands. We go to the Yetzer Hara and say, yes, you controlled me this year with Lashon Hara. You controlled me with this other issue. But I want you to know, you're not in control of me. You're not the boss of me. I decide if you eat. Your whole purpose over here is only because I made a decision to let you. If I decide to not let you, what happens? You disappear. So on Yom Kippur, the concept of the Azazel is Am Yisrael taking control back by being the one that feeds the Sitraka. That's Hashem Yishmael's Chidush. Now we understand over here as well. You have a court case against someone who's not Jewish. You read the parasha of the Shiv'im Parim, where Am Yisrael brings a korban for the success of every other nation. Where you say to yourself, 1 second, how is this person having any koach over me? If you did something wrong, mishpat, that's judgment. That's correct. But if you didn't do anything wrong, minen lewen, it must be that it's something that I've done wrong that needs to be corrected. So the reading of the Parashat HaMoadim helps us in this way. My friends, I see in this two global lessons. Number one, the unbelievable power of our words to change worlds. I have a dear friend whose name is Rabbi Menachem Selaznik. He just came out with a book called Words Change Worlds. The Power of Positive and Negative Speech. Fantastic book, fantastic man. My friends, we learn from here that a person reading about the Korbanot changes the reality of his world. What a crazy concept. Reading about the Sa'ir Azazel or about the Ketoret could be Sigula for Parnasa, could change your day at work. What? What? Now you change the deal if it's going to go your way? It's crazy. But my friends, our rabbis have already taught us, Hamavet v'achayim biyad halashon. Your tongue can create life and it can create death. So our first lesson is in the unbelievable power that words have, that language has, and understanding that our tefillot and our Torah can be actually game-changing in our daily life. Not only learning and then doing the mitzvah. It's not like other things where the language, the data that you take on, like I'll give you an example. You read the manual that teaches you how to drive. Doesn't help you at all, nothing. When you actually drive, then the data, the knowledge was important. Torah is different. Torah, we learn about Ben Sorer Moreh. The Gemara says in Ben Sorer Moreh, either, by the way, one opinion or another opinion, either it happened once or it happened never. So what are we doing? That means there's a power in the learning itself, even when it never comes to fruition. Learn from that, that in every other case, it's also the way. I once saw a very, very poor man, and this poor man refused to take charity. The guy was homeless. He had nothing. I said, please let me give you something. The guy says, no, thank you, I have everything I need. Abus. Give it to someone, he said, who really needs. Anyway, I called him to my office, we're having a whole conversation. I told him, listen, I have a special dollar here, was given to me. It's a $2 bill. I think it came from some great rabbi. I said, it was given to me. Someone gave it to me from this rabbi. He said, to do a big mitzvah with it. I said, I want to do a big mitzvah with it. Can I give it to you? And the man said, okay. I thought I was so clever. I managed to convince him to take this $2 bill from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So, because he told me to do a big mitzvah with it. He takes it, he says, it's mine, it's for me. I said, yes. He goes, well, now that it's mine, Rabbi, he says, here, please let me do the mitzvah of tzedakah with this great dollar from the Rebbe. I also want to do a mitzvah with it. Please give it to someone who really needs it. He said, I'm so happy I got to do today the mitzvah of tzedakah. I never get the chance. Gorgeous. Who are we in our lives when you hear a story like that, right? It's really a call to action, to step up. But you know what I told him? I said, if you love the mitzvah of tzedakah and you don't have the chance, go learn Hilchot Tzedakah. Don't give $1. You don't have $1. But you learn the intricate levels of all the different levels of tzedakah that are brought down. What did you just do according to what we've learned today? You fulfilled all of those mitzvot. Ma'aleh alav hakatuv, ma'aleh ani alechem, ki'ilu kiyamtem, as if you kept it. That's the power of our Torah learning. My friends, you know what this means to me? It means that we've just hacked the system. If everything you learn is translated into the real world, into the matrix, so anything you need, anything you want, go find the piece of Torah that talks about that. And you're able to, with your Torah, bring that thing into your reality. Now, when the Chazal tell it to us in one place, you can't prove it. But when you see it again and again and again, it's remarkable. We learn from here a tremendous lesson. You know, I was thinking the other day, if sometimes a person struggles tremendously in chinuch, they've tried everything. And I was thinking, you tried everything in the world of Maaseh. Maybe an interesting idea might be to sit down, cover to cover, learn all of the Ma'amarei Chazal of how a person should educate their children. Rabbi, you like the idea? Yeah, any. I had this idea a while ago with tzedakah. I created a tzedakah portfolio where a person, we know that a person gives tzedakah to something, it's a protection for that thing, insurance policy. So we give a tzedakah fund that gives to everything, and you participate in that tzedakah fund, and now you gave tzedakah for sickness, and for divorce, and for kalot, and for children, and for pidyon habet, whatever you want, it's all there. But here we're learning it in the Torah itself, not an insurance policy. In the Torah, it becomes a creative force. And I thought to myself, you know what that means? That's exactly what the Zohar is telling us. When the Zohar tells us, Histakel be'oraita ubara alma. God created the world. What did he do? He looked in the Torah and he created the world. What does that mean? He read the Torah so that it gave him good ideas. He wrote the Torah. It means that the reading of the words by God, what did it do? It created the world. And if that was true with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's also true with us. Crazy idea. The second idea I'm going to give you to walk away with, and this is much quicker. The first idea was we talked about in the power of Talmud Torah, in the power of learning. The second idea, I think, is this idea that if you have someone who's bothering you, Azazel, Yetzer Hara, Malach HaMavet, what do? What do we just see? You give him food. Right? You give him the korban. Why Shibim Parim gonna help us? Because they're eating from your hand. How many times is the way to kill a soned with kindness? To feed him. Exactly. How many times do we find the exact lashon of the pasuk. Right? Give him bread. But you know what? It's not a zero-sum game. You hate him, give him bread. What if you're just having a difficult time with him? So maybe you give him something a little bit less than bread. Maybe you smile. But killing someone, ya'ani, with kindness is, I think, maybe a beautiful thing for us to take on now for the duration of the 3 weeks. You have someone who's causing you all sorts of trouble, and it might not be someone you hate. It might be a family member. And you're always trying to figure out how to outmaneuver them, how to nail it to the wall, how to have everything set up so that they have nowhere to go, and now they have to do this. Maybe the answer is you let them eat from your hand. And I think maybe that idea is what the pasuk means in Eshet Chayil when it says about the mother that raises beautiful children. Vatakom be'od layla vatitenteref lebeta v'chok lenarotea. She understands that sometimes the way to give chok lenarotea, when she needs to, what's chok? When you have to lay down the law. When you have to say, a chok is when there's no reason. You need to tell your na'arim, your na'ar is a teenager. You need to tell your teenager, this is the law. Chok lenarotea. What do? Vatitenteref lebeta. You make a nice dinner for them. Isn't that wild? You eat from my hand, you do what I say. Hashem should bless us always to learn the beautiful lessons from the Torah and to implement them in our life. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.